Land Rover day. Right, this thing. Just need to do a little job. I've removed the bonnet, obviously. We don't normally drive it around like this, but we need to do a little job because the poor old chap fried his light switch on the way to the pub a couple of weeks ago. And fried it so much that it doesn't fucking do anything at all. It just wibbles about. There's just nothing in there. And I suspect it has fried it. There's a good reason why it's fried it. And if we look at this circuit diagram, what we've basically got on the back of the switch, there's 8 connectors. Well, there's actually about 5 connectors, but these Lucas switches, let me just get a Lucas switch out. I'll show you what the damn thing looks like. Oh, here we are, one Lucas switch. This is what it looks like on the back. So there's quite a few connectors and odds and sods and so forth, and each of these pins is numbered. You can see at the top there 1 and 2, so that's position 1, 2's beside it. So we've got 1 and 2, 3 and 4 in the middle rows. There's obviously no switch positions there. 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Now the way these things are wired up is you've got a 12 volt feed going into pin number 4, that bastard there. Then off pin 1 you've got the side lights at the front and the panel light switch. Off pin 7 you've got the side lights at the rear. Pin number 8 goes to the dip switch, which separates between the between the dip lights and the main lights. Now, there is going to be a massive load between those 2 pins there, because basically what you're doing is you're putting the full current of all of the front lights, dip and full, through that part of the circuit. So what I'm going to do, especially when we've got spider's eyes on the front of this thing, and there's a lot of current going through that, really. It's not ideal. So what I'm going to... Okay, relay wiring. Here's a relay. This is a relay I salvaged off an old loom, but you can actually get these relay sockets in most motor factors. And then I've just recycled a good 4-pin relay. One of the pins goes straight to earth, black one. One of the pins goes straight to the switch feed, okay, which is the little blue and white one. Then you have a fused supply, which goes straight to the battery, which this one has done via a little 30 amp fuse. And lastly, you have the bulbs on the top there. Okay, it's all dead easy to work out. The only slight irritant on this, because there's always an irritant, because I'm very easily irritated, is that the loom, you can't see the blue and white wires from the loom until right in the middle of the front panel. So this is all tucked up underneath the bulkhead. So all I've really done then is spliced onto that. 2 wires go through to, and they connect up to this big, where are we? Switch one. This little white and blue one. So it connects onto there. And then the bulbs all connect up to the blue and white circuit as was traditional. So here's the blue and white circuit for the bulbs. There's the red and blue circuit for the dipped lights. Blue and white for the main beams. And does it work? God, that bulb's filthy, isn't it? I think that bulb might be on its way to burning out. Not me. That wasn't me. Right, okie doke. So, no ignition, because there never is on these things. Lights are on. The panel light's working. Yep, panel lights are working. Tail lights, are they working still? They shouldn't not work, but yeah, they're going. That's nice. And at the front we should have side lights and dip lights. Yeah, that's good. Oh, side light not working. Right, I'll have to investigate that later on. Then, what we do, got the dip switch, which is right down here on the floor. You can't see it. Let me get my torch. There he is, Mr. Torch. Now, dip switch on these things, it's like it is on a lot of these really old cars. It's just a dip switch on the floor, and all that does is that diverts the circuit from the blue and red to the blue and white. So I'll click him. A couple of things I'm looking for. First and foremost, telltale comes up on the dashboard, which is good, because it means the circuit's engaged. The relay's kicked in. Well, there you go, we've got a world of light now off the front of the car. Okay, there's no flasher on this thing, but the flasher will work in exactly the same way. This fella here is a relay tester. Let me turn the lights off, because the battery is getting a bit on the low side. Could do with charging it up. It's, lights are all off. Flashers off. Panel lights are off. Horn works. Right, these little fellas, it's worth getting hold of one of these. There's so many different prices available for these, but I'm led to believe they are all exactly the same box. Okay, very, very, very simple. QC passed. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, does it? So all we do is we connect him up to the battery. Okay, and a little light will come on saying, ah, you've connected me. Next we choose our relay. I've got a spare relay here, so we'll plug him in. He plugs in there. He's a 4-pin relay, so I'll put the switch on 4-pin, press the test button, and he goes. Green light passed, red light fail. Easy. And for the couple of quid these things cost, it's actually worth having one in your toolbox, isn't it? Because then at least you know that the circuit, if you're having problems with it, you know that whether it's the relay or the circuit. Now, with this thing here, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to tie wrap it up underneath here, so it's out of the way. I've got a fuse down there, as you see, so it's not like everything's unfused here. And all of this lot just wraps up again back up at the top here. I'll just tie wrap it all up there. And that's it. That's how you put a relay on the main beams if you're finding that you keep melting light switches. That bulb is on fire. Wiring for this switch. This is the trusty Haynes workshop manual, and this is the wiring diagram for it. I'm not going to draw all over my manual because this one for some reason hasn't been drawn all over, but basically what I'll do is I'll break it down onto a piece of paper. So what we've got here, right at the centre of the diagram, which is that bit there, is the switch. Switch, as you've already seen, has got 4 switch positions. Position number 1, which is labelled on the back of the switch, goes off and does the side light, front side light bulbs, and also the panel light bulbs. Position number 4 takes a feed. Now the feed comes from the ignition switch. It's a brown and blue wire, takes the feed from the ignition switch. What I've actually done is, because the ignition is not fused, I've put a 4-position fuse box in the car, and I've extended this wire through the bulkhead and onto its own fuse position. So we've actually fused now the lighting circuit and the light switch as well. So when this thing burns out again, pops a fuse rather than melting the switch. We'll go into this in a bit more detail in a second. So position 7 does the rear lights, which are separate from the front lights. This is just down to the way the wiring is laid out inside the car. Now, I don't particularly want to mess with the front lights, the panel lights, the rear lights, or the front dipped beams, the low lights at the front. So position number 8 goes down to the dip switch on the floor. Now, there's 2 positions we can use for the dip switch. We've got the the blue and the red light, which goes to the pair of front dipped lights, just 2 of them, 2 bulbs. I don't want to interfere with that either. So in the event of a circuit failure, or the relay failure, it leaves the dip lights working. Now, traditionally, the way this thing works is then from the dip switch, you get a blue and white wire will go out towards the main beam lights, and as you've seen on the front of the car, we've got the spider's eyes. So we've got 4 main beams. Now, if this is where the problem comes in. So if we are looking at, let's get my pen in the right place. If we're looking at 4 6055 H4 bulbs, headlight bulbs, halogen bulbs, we need to use a little bit of Ohm's law, physics, stuff like this, and we'll work out what the current is that's likely to be going through this in amps. Okay, so we know already we've got 4 times 60 watt bulbs at 12 volts. Okay, we've also at the same time, so we haven't got the 2 side lights, but we haven't got the 2 dipped lights working, but we have got the front side lights working. Okay, so 4 bulbs at 60 watts, and if I go into something, you just go anywhere, just Google an Ohm's law calculator, just say if you get your own calculator out, you put 60 watts and 12 volts and calculate, and it comes back 5 amps. So each filament is drawing 5 amps of current. Okay. So we multiply that by 4 because we've got 4 lights, and that's 20 amps. I can't write, 20 amps. Plus the side lights, plus the panel lights, plus the tail lights. We're probably talking between 20 and 25 amps, I would have thought, of current. Now, we really do not want 25 amps of current going across the switch. And you'll see in a minute the state of the switch when you draw 25 amps across this switch. It's been going on for quite a while now, but you can see the devastation that occurs. So what we do is we break the circuit. We break the circuit between the dip switch here and the bulbs, and we feed in a relay. Standard 4-pin relay. This is what I've done on this particular case. So 4 pins on the relay. You've got 87, which is the one that goes to the bulbs, 30, which takes a 12-volt feed from a fuse supply from the battery, and the idea is that circuit there is as one. So effectively what we're doing is we're taking a nice chunky feed straight off the back of the battery, through the relay and straight to the bulbs. Now, this blue-white wire from the dip switch now acts as the trigger, the switch for that circuit to energise. So this is the important bit now. So you are hardly drawing any current at all now on this wire, because all you're doing now is drawing the current to run the relay and not the current to run the 4 bulbs through the switch. That goes to pin 86. Pin 85 goes straight to an earth. It's got to be a good earth, otherwise the relay will not work. Nothing will work. So the idea... Here we go. Managed to get one half of it off. So let's have a little look inside. So the top piece comes off. Underneath is all manner of springs and bits, as you would well imagine. Most of it actually seems quite tidy in there. Let me just get this side, leave it out. Oh, you bastard. Right, here comes the switch unit. Right, and you can see that has completely melted in there. That's not even slightly melted, that is a lot melted. Poor little thing. Too much current. Too many currents. And there's the remains of one of the contacts in there. That's all right. It's just the plastic is overheated, and it's the plastic overheating that's caused the switch to fail. Kind of resistant to. Right, there's one part of the switch out. You can see that's pretty tragic, isn't it? Where's the other part? Let's get this part off. Just remove the springs. That's also melted. So that's why the switch has failed. The actual casing of the switch has survived. It's not like the contacts have burnt out. I just think the current going through has just completely overloaded it. Now, interestingly, looking in this thing, so this gives you a good indication of the circuit here and the way the circuit actually is configured. So we have got at the top here pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So pin 1 and 7 are joined with 3 and 5. So 1, 3, 5, 7, all on the same circuit. So the switched side is only on this side, on the even numbers, the 2, 4, 6, 8. I didn't realise that. I thought that they went joined across. And I've never really had any cause to concern myself over it. But here, effectively, and there be a lesson to you about overloading 12-volt circuits with high current, because it will just melt. And that's what's caused the problem. Construction of it, though, isn't actually that bad. It's only those bits there, the plastic bits, that really could do with being made out of Bakelite or something tougher, or insist that people put relays in, because the poor little switch just can't cope with it. Right, thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was educational, informative, blah-de-blah-de-blah.